morning, everybody, and welcome. We're going to go ahead and record this demo. This morning we have a very special guest, dear friend of mine, a brother of sorts, Chef Antonio Medina. We used to work together at Wolfgang Puck Catering. Chef is the private chef for the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers and also owner of Gastrobus, a food truck that was one of the big food trucks that started really before everything sort of the food truck game blew up. But in any case, this morning I'm going to assist Chef with a demo that he's going to make with beef cheeks that have already been started for us. And Chef's going to make a Ricotta Cavatelli with some summer vegetables and then some spring vegetables as well. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves and just go ahead and ask Chef. Okay, so it's all yours.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for being here. It's so cool to be here with you. We haven't seen him in a while, and like you said, we used to work together for a long time. I mean, we were, even before COVID, we were just doing a lot of private things on our own, and it's just always good to see him and be part of this really good class that he has. So like he said, we're going to start with, we're going to work on some beef cheeks. They've already been braised. Beef cheeks are, this part of the cow. And for as much as cows chew all their life, those are like really tough muscles. So you want to cook them low and slow, make sure that they're nice and tender before you serve them. He's braised them already with a mixture of tomatoes, onions, some beer, kind of keeping it light for the summer. Instead of going with a traditional red wine gravy that you would do for meats like that, we use beer and more tomato to it, so it just has more freshness for the summer. And then we're gonna use it. We're gonna serve it with some ricotta cavatelli that we're gonna make right now. But then the cavatelli we're gonna use for two separate things. We're gonna serve one with the beef cheeks, and then one that's more towards the spring. That is just gonna have spring veggies, some morel mushrooms, and some cheese on it. So we're gonna get started with the cavatelli first, all right? This is a very quick pasta to make. It's very simple. You can make cavatelli just with flour and sugar. I mean, with flour and water if you wish. But this one's made with ricotta cheese and some egg which just to make it a little richer. So here I have some whole wheat flour, and then I'm gonna add some ricotta cheese to that. Like 2 cups of, about 2 cups of ricotta cheese for half a kilo of flour, and about a 1/4 cup of milk. We need a little salt on that too. We're just gonna mix it. Once you get some of the ricotta already tossed in there, you want to add your eggs. And then mix it all together. Pastas like this, you want to always use your hand so you can feel how wet or dry it is, and then you can adjust it accordingly. I mean, there's recipes for these, right? Like exact measurements and stuff, but it's always better just to use your hands and know what you're getting into. You want to really mix this so it's one even texture. You're going to need a little bit more liquid. It should feel like Play-Doh. It should have like the same consistency as Play-Doh. Pliable, but not falling apart. So then once you have it all together, you're going to pour it. You're going to work it for about 5 to 10 minutes. The more you do it, the faster you'll be able to do it because you know how to mix it better and you know how far to go in it too. We usually tend to overwork pastas at the beginning because the recipe says 10 minutes, so you just go at it for 10 minutes and then you end up with just like piece of concrete. So just gotta work on it. When you work pasta like this, you know, it's tougher than a bread dough. So you need a little more strength than when you're making bread dough. It's good just to throw your whole body in it. You know, not just go with the hands, so you're gonna get really tired. You just kind of rock your body towards it. You wanna fold it, push it, fold it, push it, turn it a little.
How do you know when to stop?
Just the consistency. See, this is still grainy. It's not quite smooth yet, you know. It should feel more like this when it's ready. When you make it with cheese, or when you make it with ricotta cheese, you know, it's a lot softer than when you make it with water. When you make pasta with water, it's really tough because it's just the gluten is just going crazy with the water. With the cheese, there's so much fat in it that kind of cuts through it, so it's softer, but it needs a little more work because there's so much gluten to it. So, or there's less gluten to it, so you need to work that gluten out with your hands more than if there's one. You can make this pasta with anything. I mean, some restaurants do it with carrot juice, some restaurants do it with beet juice. Sometimes they put green stuff in it too, and it's just like a, you know, like a kale juice or spinach. It's green. You can make it just plain with water. And flour, you can use semolina flour. You can use really any whole wheat flour you can use. This time we use regular whole wheat flour, but you can also get like farro flour or buckwheat flour, anything like that. It's all about feel too. Like you just gotta, once you make it, you know, like some flours just won't glue together. Like if you want to use some of the new gluten-free flours, like coconut or almond flour or something like that, that's probably not gonna come out too good. So you want to mix flour and whatever specialty flour you're using. So you get the flavor from the specialty and some texture from it, but you also get the structure you need from the regular flour. So that looks just right. Just want to make it into this. Push it. Right now it's, you know, it's been exercising for like 10 minutes, so you don't want to use this right now. You always want to let them rest for like at least 30 minutes at room temperature. I have these ones that we made earlier. Because if you try to use these right now and it's just so bouncy. So you see how these look so patchy and rough like that? And this one is very smooth. That's just from resting. It just calms down and turns into something a lot easier to use. So then once you have this, you want to roll it. You need a bench scraper and you need a Cavatelli roller. If you don't have this, you can use a fork. You can even use one of these things, or you can use you can even just do it on a board if you want, and you just won't have the ridges that this thing is. So you want to cut these and then turn them into logs.
The wood is it texture?
Excuse me?
The wood piece is it texture?
Yeah, it's got ridges in it.
Okay.
So then when you roll it, you get those ridges. All those ridges help to thicken the sauce, because you're exposing more surface to it. And it also helps the pasta to cling some of that sauce to it. You know. You want to cut them into even pieces, slices like that. You're going to keep this covered while you work on it. It's a towel, though.
The towel dry?
A dry towel, yeah. Then you just want to, you don't really need much flour in this.
It's sweet. It's sweet.
So you want to roll this into an even dough. A little smaller than half an inch is a good size. You just need a very clean, flat surface. Metal is really good, wood is best. You're gonna have something like that, right? And then, it's always better to cut it in half. Cut it in half again. Instead of working with a long snake, you're working just with a thing. Also, every time you cut these, you get 4 pieces instead of going one. You know? So you wanna make it even there, and then just without making them like extremely precise in size. You know, just even. Better if you sprinkle it with some semolina before you do this, so they don't stick together after you cut them. We're about to get the semolina. So yeah, you start with a piece like this, and you start with your pound down, roll. Then you add 2 pounds, and you can, when you roll, you can kind of open your fingers, and that makes it stretch. You know. And you have a couple you can also, just to make sure you're keeping up with the size, put them together and just give them a little roll together.
Pasta's really good business. It's very profitable. It's cheap to make, and from one recipe that chef's making now, it's going to yield a lot. So we're going to feed 15 people easily with just this one recipe. And then the braised beef cheeks, we use one beef cheek, which is it's about 1.5 pounds, close to 2 pounds. And once you braise it, you can shred it, right? Then you can determine how you're going to cook it. You can cut it if you're going to serve it as an entree, like a short rib, or if you just keep cooking it, once it falls apart, then you can shred that, and you get a really good yield from that. So that mixed with vegetables, which are also inexpensive, you get a really nice dish, and you can turn a really good profit on that because it's relatively cheap. That and pizzas.
Yeah.
Chef does pizza pop-ups as well. Really, really good pizza. First time they did it, started with 25, sold out. Next time, they did 50, sold out.
But then we kind of got scared with COVID, so we stopped for a little bit. It's good to get people together, but I think this summer we're gonna get back to it. But yeah, anything with flour, it's just good business because as long as you're making it right, Right, so we got semolina here. Don't be afraid. Semolina doesn't, it only sticks so much, the rest just falls down. So don't be afraid to really throw some in there. Thanks for getting that. So see, with the semolina, you can put them all together and just do this. So you get them all even.
So what Chef's doing, the way that he cut them about 1/4 inch, little pieces, and then once we roll them on the paddle, they're gonna flatten out just a little bit, look a little bit elongated, almost sort of football shape. Then you get the ridges, right? If you cut them really big at this point, once you roll them out, they're still going to expand, and once you cook them in the water, it's gonna double in size regardless. So if it's really big when you cut it, it's going to increase that size still after it's boiled, right? Then you're going to finish it in the sauce. And ideally what you want is something that's going to be, 1 to 2 bites. If they're too big here, they're going to get really big and then they'll tend to be a little bit gummy. So you really have to consider, this is a very important step in terms of what the finished product is going to look like. So you have to think about that before you put them in the water. Otherwise they're really, really big. They're not.
It's not too pleasant when they're big, they're good little bit. Yeah, exactly.
Any questions so far? Anybody viewing at home, any questions?
Always toss them a little after you put the semolina so they don't stick. That could be a problem, if you finish cutting and you have a pile of them and then they're all stuck together, you're gonna have to probably do it again or spend a lot of time in moving them. So once you have that, take your board. You just go one by one, and you want to press it with your thumb. You put it in there, and you press it and roll it at the same time, and let it fall. And that's what it looks like. The name of these cavatelli comes from that's a term for carving. So you want to have like a, you're carving a hole in it, making like a little cave in it. And it's very important because that's what's going to hold the sauce. If you were to get just a bowl of this, that would be like a gnocchi. You would have to be really tender for it to be good.
You could also, so chef's a master at pastas. So he can do it with his thumb. If you don't have thumbs, or if you wanna, if you wanna move faster, what you can do is take the bit of pasta, and then either with an offset spatula, or again just with your thumb. If you press too hard into the paddle, then it'll stick. If you have too much flour on the paddle, it'll just slide, right? So you just need a little bit, just so that it moves easily. But when you press into it, you're gonna take your thumb and then roll it, and then just let it fall. Or you can take a offset spatula, press it, and then just drag it. The same thing happens. So
yeah, like I was saying, if you don't have that, you can use anything that has ridges on it. Forks are really popular for that, but see, like even this thing, you can just take it and go like that, and then you have a different design on it. It's like an octopus. You can also just do them flat, like either on this side or on the other side, on the board. This is very common for it too. However, a lot of times I have a very small one. That's like the great nutmeg. That side is very commonly used for that, but you can also use it. It really needs to be the smaller one because this is kind of tricky to do in here. Anything with ridges will help you out. Or just the board like that. If you don't have anything to do with it.
And does the ricotta give it flavor, or is it more for like
creaminess? It's just more richness to it.
Okay.
Not really creaminess, more like richness to it. And once you that helps soften up the flavors of the whole dish if you add that to it. Okay. Anything dairy usually mutes the flavors a little bit. Like when you add butter to the sauce to tone it down a little to make it smoother. Same idea. The dairy just kind of smoothens it up a little. It just makes it really soft. That's most of it.
these, if you make ahead of time, which you totally can, once you have them cut, then you can freeze them, and then they'll hold for a long time. So as soon as you need it, you just pull it out of the freezer and go directly into boiling salted water, and that's a good way to get ahead because it takes some time, especially if they're this small.
There's also machines for it, like machines that you crank. You just feed the log on one side and crank it, and it just gets hot on the other side.
Called the Cavatelli maker. It's really cool. So that rope that chef made with the dough initially, if you have this Cavatelli cutter roller, then you just feed that through, and then you just crank it, and then it cuts them out and gives you the ridges. Speeds up the process. But if you do it this way, you can charge more because you can say hand rolled pasta, which is, it's a marketing ploy that works. It works.
You know how they try it for like a month or something? Can you do this? Can you do that with this pasta, or?
You can try this pasta. Yeah, there's especially during the pandemic, there was a lot of restaurants that were selling their pantries. And some of them were selling their homemade pastas. They were just drying, putting it delicate, and selling by the pound. So yeah, it's very common, Or you used to do like a pasta production day every couple of weeks, and you have pasta for those 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, pasta is very useful like that. It's very budget friendly that way. which you can just make and keep. Either freeze it or dry it.
How long would it take to dry?
It probably dries. If you put it in a dehydrator, it would be ready the next day, overnight, you know. But if you just dry it out in the air, 2 days, 3 days maybe.
Do you just sit it out flat?
Yeah, you sit it out. The problem is that, especially if it has a dairy product, you know, you can grow some bacteria in it. You can grow some mold in it or something. So you kind of have to watch out when the pasta has dairy in it. You know, if it's just flour or water, it's a different thing. Or if it's a really thin pasta that will dry really quickly, it's a different thing.
And then also depending on the pasta dough that you make, if you leave it out, the pasta dough is gonna oxidize, so it might get a different color, might turn gray. Especially if you do like half all-purpose flour, half semolina.
Yeah, they kind of turn grayish brown or something like that. It's just unpleasant, you know.
If you're
It
using,
looks like an old pasta. One thing very important thing about storing pastas while you're making them is that you want a flat surface. You don't want it piled up for too long because it will stick. You know, eventually that semolina is going to absorb the water from the pasta and just glue it all together again. So you want to make sure they're nice and paste. It's better always to pick them up with a flat spatula of some sort, because if you use your hands, they're delicate. You know, you're ruining the shapes and stuff. This is perfect for. This is one of the most useful things when you're making pasta. You have a nice texture. So see, you got them in one even layer. Make a couple more. If you have small fingers, you have a way easier time making this than if you have big fingers. So I've taught my daughter to make this. She has tiny 10-year-old hands. She makes them so fast because she has tiny fingers, so she doesn't get all caught up in it, you know. So, yeah. So sometimes you see like a person with really big hands that they're really agile with it, but it's kind of hard to come back. Sometimes they'll stick to your finger. You just put some flour in your finger.
What is that board called?
They cook this in gnocchi board usually. You find it in any kitchen store. They have. Sometimes there's ones that look nicer. They kind of have this tone of wood, but I prefer these ones because they have smaller ridges. The other one have like thicker ridges, and they have like the wood has like a finish, so they don't stick. This one needs some finished wood, so the pasta kind of just sticks just enough to it, so it gives you a better friction. So you can.
If you start washing it, then the wood starts to, like the wood fibers start to come out, and then
It's
it'll
some
get into
finished
the
wood,
pasta.
you know.
Yeah.
There's no coating in it, so it's just gonna soak up whatever you put in it. Yeah, no, what you want to do when it gets cut up is just take your bench scraper and kind of go line by line like this. Because the flour will get cut up in there, especially if you use semolina. If you use regular flour, you will make like a glue in there. So, like when you're making gnocchis, those have more moisture to them, and usually you toss them with regular flour. So that moisture with the flour just turns like dough here. And after a couple of minutes of rolling it, you have to do this to go back to it. Otherwise, you just won't form anything. You just make a mess.
So you see, it takes a little bit of time, but once your dough is done, again, we still have a lot that we can make. And it's this is half of the dough recipe.
So what you do for that?
Puff you made, or is that half of the puff?
This is half of the recipe I made earlier.
Oh, that's still
The one that I have ready was a half a recipe from this one. So the one that we made is more right now will give you a lot. But the thing to do about that, so you kind of save time and make it better, is you teach your kids how to make it, and then you make it with them.
It's really fun. Making pasta is one of my favorite things to do. It's just really therapeutic.
So this is the beef chicks that Chef cooked already. We made a ragu sort of it. You know, it's got onions, green peppers, garlic, celery, some herbs in it, Again, this is a lighter ragu. Even like the color of it will tell you it's not a dark red wine ragu. That's more like a winter, treat. You know, this is more on the summer side. You want to keep things lighter in the summer. You don't want to give somebody like a super heavy dinner in summer. It's hot and it's uncomfortable. And then it also mingles better with summer vegetables. That's what we're gonna use this braising liquid and mix it up with some fresh veggies just to brighten it up a little more. Make it more summer-like, you know. And then we're gonna also use some of that cavatelli to we're just gonna toss it with some butter sauce and some spring vegetables like asparagus, morel mushrooms. So we're gonna make two dishes. Just so you guys can see, you can use that pasta year round. You just have to kind of change the setting for it, you know. And you can always make it with beef cheeks too. You can just change the settings and the ways you make it, so it's appropriate to the time. So these morels we've been soaking for about 20 minutes now. You want to cut them, soak them in water, change the water a couple of times. Because the water will come out really dirty. There's a lot of dirt. It's just so you see what comes out with it.
Morel mushrooms, it's morel season right now, so they do tend to be pretty dirty. So once you get your morels, they act like sponges. So what you want to do is cut them, right? And if you don't cut them, regardless, you want to soak them in water. And then when you soak them in the water, you're going to see some things come out. Number one, you'll see some soil, any sediment, right? They are very dirty. And then you might see some little bugs also come out. And then you want to wash them a few times. So that's really important. But they're super earthy. They have, pretty moderate amount of moisture in them. Pretty moderate moisture content. And then they will really soak up any sauce, cooking liquid that you're using them with. So really good texture. And the morel mushroom will go really well with that flour that Chef used for the pasta dough.
Right. So I'm gonna get started on the sauce that's gonna be tossed with that pasta. So I like to take fresh tomatoes and use the wider side of the grater. And just cut them in half and then you just grate them with that. You just left with the skin. I prefer using these than canned tomatoes for sauces, especially fresh sauces like these, like avocado sauces, because it just has a way fresher flavor, especially in the summer when you get really good tomatoes. And the texture you get from doing these is perfect for a ragu. I don't think I ever make a ragu without adding grated tomato paste.
That's a really great method. I mean, you're gonna get summer, spring on a plate. All these vegetables, by the way, are from our garden. So, with the exception of the morel mushroom and the white asparagus.
Right, because we're starting the summer, so we're going with the early summer vegetables. That's what the first dish is going to be. So we have some cherry tomatoes, we have some tiny zucchinis, some hot peppers that we can use for garnish, some cucumber flowers, some thyme flowers, and some herbs, and the fresh tomatoes.
That's beautiful. It's what we snack on every day, right? Just like going pick these tomatoes. It's perfect. A little bit of salt, a little bit of olive oil, and nice treat. Yes, Chef? Pardon me? Yeah, exactly. So they were just, question was, did you peel them?
No, you just cut them in half and then just put the skin in your hand, the skin side in your hand, and you like that. And you just end up with the skins and the tomato. It's just more cold and
He's the man.
So
Yeah.
we want to do the get started with the sauce. We'll get it going, then we'll cook the pasta, and we'll toss it all together. Just want a little oil. Just a little bit. The sauce already has a lot of flavor. I mean, you can really just use this, and this is perfect with pasta. But having all these good vegetables and just to make it more, you know, a little more season friendly. Just kind of cook it. And they don't need to cook too long. They're very tender. They're very little. You just really want to pretty much warm them up. A little garlic. Throw your veggies with some herbs. And go with your seasoning. I also like to add a little bit of tomato paste, just for color. And it's just concentrated, so it will get the tomato flavor even higher. Pepper. Doesn't need to be, it's okay if it's thick right now because we're going to add some of the pasta water when it's when the pasta is done, so that will soften it up a bit. You always want to salt your pasta water. Again, don't use your hands because you will just lose all the good shape you got. Alright. And shake some of that semolina off. I mean, that takes about 2-3 minutes to cook.
You want to talk about how important it is to serve your food on hot plates?
Yeah.
You just did something very important.
Yeah, you never want to put hot food on a cold plate. Never do. I mean, at home, sure, nobody eats other plates at home, but if you're serving food and you're charging for it, just eat up the plate. It takes no time, and it makes a huge difference, you know. Because if you think about the time that from when you put the food on the plate to when the person gets it, after they take their pictures, they show it to their friends, whatever they do to it, you know, it's gonna get cold. It's gonna get cold, no matter what. So just warm it up. It really just takes 30 seconds. It makes a huge difference. And it'll save you some bad times if you're working somewhere and you just hand the chef a plate that you made and the plate is not hot. You probably get yelled for that. So it's not worth it.
Hot food, hot plate. Cold food or ice cream.
Usually they say when the pasta floats, it's ready. It's not ready. You need to let it cook a little more. You know that?
You don't throw it against the wall.
What's that?
You know the method where you throw it against the wall?
Oh yeah, that works. And you just toss it against the wall. That works better with spaghetti though.
Oh.
Another thing though, if you're cooking pasta, you know, we want it al dente, right? But it should be before al dente when you put it here, because you should finish cooking here. You know how pasta water gets really thick after a while? You want to do the same thing in your sauce. You want that pasta to thicken the sauce. So pick it. Another thing, don't let it drain too much, because you want some of that water in it. So just right from it to it. 15.
So when you're making a sauce, especially like this, you know, if you're gonna put some Parmesan in there, that'll help thicken it up. But we also use that pasta water, and because that starch, you know, is constantly coming out of this pasta water that you keep cooking in, that'll also, number one, it'll season it, and then number two, it also helps thicken it as well. Another thing that kind of bothers me when I get pasta that doesn't have enough sauce, you have to consider that when you put that pasta in there, it's going to immediately absorb that sauce, right? So you have to kind of counter that and adjust the consistency, because if you serve it on the plate, you don't adjust that consistency, it's just going to be really, really dry. So you have to take into account that it's going to absorb that liquid as needed, right? So that liquid is really an important ingredient, but it's a variable.
You want to be careful with the salt too, because you have salt in the water, and you're adding that water to the pasta. So always keep it light on the salt until the very end. And as the water evaporates here, it gets saltier. You know, when salty water evaporates, it's usually the salt there. So just a little more. Alright. Turn it off. You just want to add these to the pasta. That's always goes with pasta. Break it. You can leave some leaves whole, some leaves and you always want to finish it with some butter. There's hardcore Italian cooks are very, very opinionated about where the pasta is from, if it goes with butter or with olive oil. Leave that for them. That's what they believe in that so much, and it's great because they keep the tradition that way. But you're not there, and unless your grandma is from there, and she tells you, just put butter in pasta. And you serve it. Make sure you get all the veggies you added to it in one plate. You want to make a plate that only has tomato, no zucchini, or the other way around. With a little cheese, with the richness of the beef cheeks, you don't want to have like a super cheesy pasta, And then you take these nice pieces of beef cheese. Three, you think? Yeah. You also want to add a little bit of this nice braising, almost like a stew. And then you have some garnishes. The chives are always good. Take these 3 to 5 and throw one of those in there too. And that's it. That's a ricotta cavatelli with early summer veggies and beef cheek ragu. So let's get the other one going. This one's a little easier. It's simpler. So this one you want to start with the mushrooms. That's whenever you cook veggies, you always wanna, when it's a mixture of veggies, you wanna start with the ones that take the longest to cook, and add the more tender ones, the ones that will cook quickly. You wanna add those at the end. So we'll start with the mushrooms. Remember, there's water in this, so it's gonna pop up if the oven is too hot, if the oil is too hot. Mushrooms take a lot of oil to cook. They just soak it all up. So don't be afraid. I mean, you don't want to make it all oil, but don't be afraid to use more than what you normally would with other veggies. And since they've been soaking in water, they're gonna cook faster than dry mushrooms. They're gonna soak it up faster too. So that cooks, we can get the pasta going. Same, shake up some of that semolina. Once you drop it, you always want to shake it too. You don't want that to just turn into a matzo ball. You can add the kale once that softens up a little, because it's kale takes a little bit to cook also. And the steam from the mushrooms will help that soften up. You can add some herbs to it just for flavor. You can make these with any mushrooms. These were just really good right now. We wanted to use them, but you can do this with any mushrooms. So once you have them like that, the garlic is toasted, the mushrooms have soak up all that moisture and soften up. You want to add a little chicken stock. Turn it down a little. Add your asparagus. You want to season a little, but remember that there's salt in this water, so you don't want to overdo it. It's lower. I gotta really get down. So you always want to have too much liquid in it when you first put it in. You don't want to serve. It should look like it's not ready to be served. It should look wet and frothy like that.
Yeah, so for this one, there's just a little bit of chicken stock and some of the pasta water. And, you finish it with butter,
Yep.
which will also bind it and emulsify it. And then once you have the butter and some stock in there or water, and you cook that down, it's going to form a glaze. So it'll emulsify, and then the more you cook it down, it'll become very rich, along with the starch from the pasta. Go ahead and put the cheese in there, and then, you get a really simple, very light sauce.
Same basil.
Nice and rich.
Always put basil in pasta. So, when it's a stock-based sauce like that, it's almost like a beurre blanc, but you want it to be thinner because you're gonna add cheese to it, and that's gonna make it really thick. And also, if you have too much butter like a beurre blanc, the cheese will just make it all break. And you wanna kind of be generous with the cheese in this one. You want to make this a la minute because of all the green veggies too. You don't want it to be soft and soggy veggies, And whatever herb you throw whole, make sure you take it out. Although some people like to leave that for make it look more natural, better not to. So you want it to look like that. You want the pasta and the veggies to be glazed, like Chef said, and the sauce to be just about the consistency of a beurre blanc, but it's got cheese in it, so it's not quite a beurre blanc. You can also just make this with water. You don't need to have stock, it just gives it more flavor, but a little more cheese on top. Chive. Couple of these guys. There you go. So that same pasta, two completely different dishes with them. You get to try it. Now we get to eat. There's more. There's more here. There's more pasta to make too.
All right, everybody. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chef.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening and for having me here. I appreciate it.
For everybody at home, everybody in house, we're gonna go ahead and upload this recording. We'll put the recipes up there. But again, you see very different flavor profiles that you can get. One pasta recipe, and then you can just adapt it with the season. So right now, we're fortunate enough to be able to go out in the garden and just pick all of these ingredients at their peak. But same pasta recipe will change in the fall, and we just adjust it with what you have available. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And see you next time. Thank you.
Yeah, man.